Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, wherever in the world you may be. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on the very important subject of domain security and compliance. My name is Haydn Simpson. I'm the head of brand services division at CentralNic. For those of you who don't know us very well, brand services includes the BrandShelter, Safe Brands, Dominic and nicmanager businesses. And we work each day with brands of all sizes, providing them with the tools to do good business online. Just as an introduction, the majority of our customers face a common threat, that of cyber attacks, and this is on the rise, as we all know. People we work with tend to be in intellectual property, marketing, or maybe IT, and many of them don't have online security expertise, which is where we try and help. It's easy to overlook some simple steps that should be taken to secure domain names and emails. Today, we're going to help you understand more about this essential part of a digital strategy. And we're going to cover points such as the current state of cyber-based risks, compliance and international regulations, and some golden rules around domain and email security. We'll also finish with an example scenario of DNS security put to the test. From a housekeeping perspective, we're going to aim for about 40-45 minutes. During the webinar, please use the chat function to ask questions. We'll address those at the end, and rest assured, we will be sending out an email including the recording of the webinar to all participants, and also any questions that we don't get the opportunity to answer during the session, we'll answer on that email as well. So let's get to the interesting bit. Without further delay, I want to introduce you to my colleague, Daniel Strauß, who heads up our nicmanager business as part of the brand services team, and with more than 10 years experience of creating and leading domain security solutions. Daniel is our domain and email security expert, and I'm now going to hand over to him. Thanks, Daniel. Over to you.
Thank you, Haydn, for your introduction. You've set the bar pretty high. I hope that I can still meet the standards. A warm welcome to you, my dear participants. Time is short, so we'll start straight away. But before, I still have one request for you. Make intensive use of the opportunity to ask your questions directly at the chat, because I want you to get the maximum out of your invested time. Let's start right now with the current situation report. Almost every day, we hear and read about cyber incidents on companies, authorities worldwide. Almost every sector is affected by the economically or politically motivated attacks. Industry, commerce, critical infrastructures, and the extent of the damage is often incalculable. Independent studies provide an objective picture of the actual situation. 7 out of 10 companies have already become victims of attacks. 1 in 5 companies suspect that they have already been the target of an attack. 43 billion euros in financial damage have been caused. Damage to the image of customers and suppliers are the biggest cost drivers. Domain-relevant threats such as spoofing, DDoS, and man-in-the-middle attacks account for a large proportion of damage in digital IT attacks. A situation report on cybercrime from May 2022 paints a similar picture. The number of recorded cybercrimes continues to rise by over 12% in 2021. Cybercrime causes billions of euro in damage, and the trend continues to rise. Ransomware remains the modus operandi with the highest damage potential in cybercrime. From 5 billion in 2019, the damage is now estimated at almost 25 billion. Almost a 5-fold increase. Quantity and quality of DDoS attacks continue to rise, 41% more than in 2020, with an average of almost 800 Mbps and peaks of over 3 gigabits per second. The longest attack lasts 82 days. Classic phishing continued to be one of the main entry vectors for malware in 2021 and was crucial for the mass tapping of sensitive data. All companies, organizations, and institutions can become targets of cybercriminals. In addition to public institutions, e-commerce, the health and education sectors, as well as critical infrastructures, almost every industry has become a target of cybercrime in 2021, regardless of whether it's a small business, SME, or large corporation. And the detective rate? It's just below 30%. The underground economy is booming. The volume of quality of incriminated goods and services offered continue to increase. DDoS as a service can be obtained for as little as $80. Infection on demand, for example, phishing, from as little as $100 per month. At the same time, barriers to entry on the part of the perpetrators are falling. The study estimates the total damage at more than 235 billion euros, and thus more than twice as high as 2 years ago. Sure, but what does all this have to do with domains? Domains play a key role in business success. They secure the technical operation of companies and are elementary components of corporate branding. As particularly valuable assets, they must be protected against damage and loss with appropriate measures. Let me give you one example. Almost 20 years ago, a security extension was developed to protect against DNS manipulation, such like man-in-the-middle attacks. Later, this was declared as a standard in RFC 4033. ICANN and other institutions have recommended its use for many years. And just as an example, since 2011, this DNS extension has been available at the registry for .de domains, one of the most successful country code TLDs. The statistics of the registry DNIC are publicly available. Out of over 17 million domains, only about 277,000 domains currently have the DNS security extension active. That corresponds to 1.6%. Exciting topic, I thought. Reason enough to take a closer look at this picture. In our study on the situation picture, we examined 19,000 actively used domains of companies which, according to the industry, belong to the critical infrastructures and therefore have special requirements for IT security. In non-intrusive analysis required for the operation of domains and related services, we looked for abuse vulnerabilities. This is therefore freely accessible information, such as can also be analyzed quickly and easily by cybercriminals. And the result? Poor and across the board. Critical infrastructures have DNS risks no better under control than the average. 60% have tried to implement rudimentary protection against email spoofing, but significant 50% are not effective. Less than 1% are optimally protected against email spoofing. More than every third website did not allow an encrypted connection or not without errors. The error rates are completely unacceptable. Within a company, different stakeholders act with partly contrary motives and interests. For effective and efficient domain management, it is therefore of immense importance that responsibilities, competences, as well as processes and workflows are clearly defined and documented in a domain policy. Otherwise, it's not only precious resources are wasted, the results are also rather poor and far from optimum, especially regarding safety. Most companies and authorities equate the term domain management with the registration of domains and the administration of DNS records. Far from it, because in reality, this only represents the sub-area of technical administration. Over the past few years, I have developed a framework on which we base our consulting, training, and coaching. Based on the 3 pillars of strategy, administration, and security, the framework contains the goals and tasks of integrated corporate domain management. A fully comprehensive approach to integrate it holistically into the organization and the existing processes. The basic idea behind is this: to support all protagonists involved in safeguarding the interests of the company in the best possible way, conserving resources and reducing risks. Nevertheless, the question arises in many institutions: why a domain risk management? The answer is simple. Yes, because I'm obligated to do so. Risk management is a duty, not a freestyle. This is especially true for critical infrastructures and corporations. For other companies, it has at least an emanating legal effect. There are numerous standards and regulatory requirements worldwide for dealing with domain-related risks. While non-compliance with recommendations merely increases the entrepreneurial risk of having to bear the damage alone, breaches of binding rules can result in severe penalties being imposed on the institution. Responsible persons may be privately liable. Therefore, the following is important, from the board of directors to the gatekeeper. Protect yourself, your company, your employees, and your customers from liability risks. Create company-wide awareness for IT compliance and domain compliance in particular, and do everything necessary to implement it, because criminal risks don't stop at the end of the day and affect you as an individual. Domain security, therefore, do not only protect the company. Hey, but what could happen to domains? Frankly, this is the most frequent question I am asked when I reveal what I do for a living. This is often reinforced by the belief that we've had domains for 20 years. Nothing has ever happened to them. But at least when the terms phishing or man-in-the-middle attack are mentioned, the invitation is extended for a coffee. Possible consequences of domain risks are, in addition to the direct financial damage, high costs for damage repair, as far as this is possible at all. The resulting damage to reputation can unfold its effect over years. In individual cases, the consequences can threaten the existence of the company. Therefore, the protection goals of IT security apply to domain risk management: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And how can I achieve these goals for my domains? I regularly recommend reading the applicable regulations. In Germany, for example, the 900 pages IT Grundschutz Compendium. It's really worthwhile. It contains countless measures for the security of your domains, DNS, email, and so on. In addition, there are special BSI publications, for example, for name servers. Similar specifications issued by official bodies also exist for United Kingdom, the European Union, the United States of America, Canada, Australia, just to name a few of examples. That means, please implement recognized rules of technology and industry standards. Today, no one would think of hooking up a Windows 98 computer with internet access to the company network without any antivirus protection. Why not? Of course, because of security, attacks, and so on. But how do you get the idea that domains have an auto-update mechanism with integrated firewall and DDoS mitigation that mystically makes vulnerabilities disappear into the silicon nirvana of the World Wide Web? Therefore, rely on industry standards and create binding internal company regulations. Domain names are an integral part of the domain name system, DNS for short. And yes, the DNS is a dinosaur in our digital world. Paul Mockapetris, the forefather of DNS, could hardly have imagined in 1983 that the DNS infrastructure would be attacked with DDoS attacks to provoke a total breakdown of all domains, or that the data in the DNS would be manipulated to direct users to websites with questionable content or to spy out data. The functionality of the DNS is simplified here, relatively simple. The data is stored decentrally and hierarchically, and cached almost everywhere, not only for performance reasons. The information is also available in plain text and unencrypted to anyone for retrieval. This is part of the DNS concept. When a user requests a website, in this example FBI.net, the question first goes to the caching resolver. If the caching resolver does not have the requested information at hand, the request is forwarded, if necessary, up to the authoritative name service of the domain. The answer goes back on the same path and it's cached by all parties involved. If the request is made again, for example by another user, the information is served directly from the cache. The caching approach, anchored in the DNS, carries the risk that the resolvers involved could be manipulated. Correct data could be replaced by attackers in order to redirect to the servers they operate. The user has hardly any chance to check the authenticity of the website he has reached. This problem can be solved with the Dns extension Dnsec. For this purpose, every single piece of information in the DNS, really every record in the zone, is signed with a private key, and the public part is published in the DNS. A part of the key is countersigned in the hierarchically higher level, so that a verifiable chain of trust is created via the registry up to the root name service. A potential attacker could still attempt a man-in-the-middle attack, but he cannot sign his manipulated information with the required private key. The data is identified as not valid, so it is not delivered to the user. For the user, the requested service, in this case the FBI website, is simply not accessible. The verifiability of authenticity of DNS data makes this attack vector virtually useless. We remember, the number of DDoS attacks is increasing by 41%, combined with an increase in quality, almost 800 Mbps on average, and peaks of over 3 gigabit. This trend is expected to continue in 2022. And we also remember, the cost of a DDoS attack can be had quite cheaply, thanks to cybercrime as a service from $80 per month. If parts of the name server infrastructure, or in worst case, the authoritative name servers, are attacked, there is a threat of total failure of all systems connected to them. The classic, still widespread unicast approach, in which 2 or more dedicated redundant name servers hold the zone information, cannot withstand today's attacks with bandwidth beyond 3 gigabits per second. The result? Maximum impact on all domains of these name servers. And the solution? Rely on high available DDoS protected Anycast name server infrastructure. In contrast to the outdated technology of operating several physical name servers, Anycast DNS is a cloud-based and thus scalable solution. Distributed worldwide, a multiple of instances take over the work in a DDoS mitigation protected environment. Attacks can be detected and combated. Positive side effect? Since the geographically closest instance response and not every request runs once around the globe, the latency times for resolving domain names decrease. This is a plus in speed for the user, but also for search engines, because the resolution of a domain is included in the loading time of the website, an important ranking factor. Emails are an important communication medium and scalable advertising messenger. And we remember, they are the main entry vector for cybercriminals. Therefore, it is essential to protect yourself, your customer, as well as your business partners from email spoofing, and to ensure a high deliverability of your own emails. I therefore invite you to a joint experiment and a short journey through the time. In the past, When Susie sender wanted to send a letter to Ron recipient, she needed the content of the letter, for example, a declaration of love, an order or notice of termination, an envelope to put the letter in, the clear and deliverable address of the recipient, and, of course, the sender, so that Ron would know immediately who the letter was from. The letter was finally posted and mailed. Ron got the letter delivered to his letterbox. And in the past, criminals also used the post to send masses of advertising, blackmail letters, or even letter bombs. Today, Susie and Ron send electronic messages, almost in real time. They both have an email box with a unique email address, which can act as both sender and addressee. An email message contains, like a letter used to, the content as the so-called body of the message, the addressee, for example, the recipient's email address, the sender's email address, and an electronic envelope, the so-called header. The invisible part of the envelope contains a lot of technical information about the sending of the message. This way, Susie and Ron can send each other messages. Cybercriminals like Harry Hacker also use modern communication to pursue their goals. And because of the flood of unwanted emails, spam filters are used to sort out Harry's emails directly. Because Harry knows his bad reputation, he relies on giving false senders. This works very well, even if protective mechanisms are not implemented or do not work. Andrea knows the danger of mail spoofing and has optimally protected her domain and permanently monitors its effectiveness. Harry's fake emails with Andrea as the sender are not only rejected, Andrea is also informed about which IP addresses are used to send fake mails with her domain. And the lack of protective mechanisms at Ron's is causing his email reputation to sink, and his genial mails are increasingly ending up in the spam folder. Mail servers are very simple in this respect. They act accordingly to the motto, if you don't do anything for your reputation, you don't deserve it. Before a short live demonstration, please let me introduce you to one of the most important people in the fight against organized cybercrime. Do you know Christopher Asher Ray? He joined the fight against crime in 2017 as the director of FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigation published the most wanted people. And let's say Mr. Ray would write me a personal email. In it, he asks me to support him in the fight against cybercrime. And he does so not as a director of the FBI, but as a citizen and a patriot. Protecting the Constitution and the rule of law is, after all, a civic duty. So we could assume that the person Christopher Asher Ray with the email address c.a.ray@christopherasherray.com is writing me a message. And it's completely irrelevant to our example that this is not his actual email address. I think you understand that my personal risk management forbids me to send with his real business email address. So our scenario, Mr. Ray composes an email to me requesting assistance in locating felons. Granted, this is a very abstruse example, but imagine someone trying to do this with your digital identity. All the important information for this can usually be found in the imprint. The boards of directors, managing directors, or just on LinkedIn or somewhere else in the internet. And all we need for our demonstration is an email client. And unlike yours, I'm using one where I can specify the sender in addition to the addressee and the content. For today's example, I've simply prepared the data. So now just send, and the email will be sent without me having access to Mr. Ray's domain or email server. Let's see. You will hardly believe, but just now I received a message from FBI Director Christopher Wray. Could you bring that up, please? I think it looks real at the first glance. Well, with an official looking footer, perhaps with a logo, that's on the FBI website, I think, and a disclaimer with data protection, the trust level rises. First of all, there's no clear indication apart from the text that this is a fake or phishing email. Now it often only takes one recipient who thinks the message is so trustworthy that he or she clicks on the link. What can be set off in the process is usually unstoppable. In our case, the link simply redirects to the FBI's well-known website. The website is live and even has a security certificate. And just look how quickly you get into the FBI's top 10 most wanted people, just because you wanted to educate and to point out concrete dangers to others, without actually having committed a crime. To clarify, no, I did not hack the FBI's websites, and really did not commit any crimes or dishonest acts. What you have just seen is a combined attack of social engineering, spoofing, and phishing, with the typical attack vector of a homographic domain. These are domain names that look confusingly similar to the original. A website copy with manipulated content is located here, and depending on the need, to spread malicious code or to tap sensitive data. Would you have noticed the fake? Beside homographic domains, other spellings are also used for criminal purposes. The effort is low, the chances of success much higher. The annual costs for this demo, including hosting and domains, are less than 10 euros. The initial effort for the manipulated website is less than 15 minutes. And now, hand on heart, would your employees recognize such fake without a doubt? Domain risks harbor enormous potential dangers for your company, your customers, and your business partners. They do not only prevent economic success, but also lead to high costs and avoidable damage to your reputation, and can even have criminal consequences. Therefore, it's important to optimally protect your digital identity from misuse and damage. Awareness, trained employees, and effective protection mechanisms are your success factors. Continuous monitoring ultimately ensures optimal implementation of your domain compliance. If you are now wondering how to implement domain security in your company, which measures have already been effectively implemented, or which exact steps are still missing for an optimal domain compliance, please contact your personal advisor at CentralNic directly. We support you with targeted security audits and in hardening your domain security. If you would like targeted training or coaching for your employees, I would be happy to hear from you personally. Whether you want to consolidate basic knowledge, build up specialized knowledge, or get help in solving your specific challenges, our framework provides the necessary know-how, effective methods, and efficient tools. Well, we're almost done. I thank you for your attention, hoping that I've been able to give you helpful impulses and that you've been able to take something away with you. In this case, my time was well invested and a complete success. And much success is what I wish to you in the implementation. With that, I return to Haydn Simpson. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. It's always sobering to see the kind of statistics that you displayed there, and also how easy these things are to execute for the criminal gangs. even with 20 years of experience in the industry, it never ceases to amaze me. So thank you for that informative presentation, and I appreciate the examples that you showed us. So we're going to turn to some questions now, and I'm going to turn to some that we've received from the group. Daniel, I assume you're still there.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure. So you mentioned towards the beginning of the presentation that there are a lot of national and international regulations regarding the security of domains. Those differ by country and region. So can you give us a bit of an insight as to how applicable those are, how seriously those get taken, and how we understand, what we need to do in each individual area?
Okay, so my lawyer would say it depends on, to be honest. So the established measures and standards that you have to realize are at least at the state of, I would say, a recommendation. So worldwide, you should do these things that we mentioned in our webinar. So this means, on the one hand side, the DNS security, so just use any casted, high available DNS, use Dnsec, and of course secure your email as good as you can. So these are the leastest recommendations that you should realize. On the other hand, in a few areas, these recommendations are coming up to an obligation. So it's not only a recommendation, but you should do this. And it's what we see, it's coming more and more and more. So in the European Union, for example, new laws and regulations are on the way. So in Europe, we talk about NIS2 and DORA. So from my perspective, this will be a total new game changers, as the penalties will be stiff.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And I was just looking at the figures that you gave, that only 2% of companies are compliant. I think that's a German figure with some of the best practice stuff that the German authorities put out. So, I mean, I guess the recommendation here is that, for brand owners, this becomes ever more complex. And so therefore, you need to consider in terms of your digital presence in individual countries, exactly what applies within those countries. And I guess to do that, you need to understand exactly what is happening and what's coming in the future. So either talk to your trusted advisors about that, or, you're going to have to do the research yourselves, I think. So would you say it's going to become more complex?
Absolutely. So I think what we see today, it's still it's the peak of the iceberg. So the complexity of the topics will be huger and larger, and it's today hardly to go through all the details. If you see how many RFPs you should have in mind, how many rules on international and national law you have to fulfill, it's hardly to have all these things on your table without paying a lot of time for the researchers.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's similar to managing complex domain portfolios. You need to know what the rules and regulations are in local levels, although this takes it to a kind of a governmental level where there can be penalties. So I guess it's a little bit more serious. Okay, well, thank you for that. So I just want to go back to the 2% figure again. So, 2% of companies that are compliant, 98% that aren't. That seems like a pretty high figure to me. What do you think the reasons for that are? Because that seems like proportionally odd, let's say.
Yes, I totally agree. So I don't know exactly the reason. I don't know exactly the one reason. But what we see, there are several things that happens outside. On the one hand, the missing awareness. So people do not know that they should be aware of the risks that a domain has or an email has. Often they have a lack of know-how, so they know that there could be a thing, but they don't know how to use it and how to handle it. And there's a third thing that that comes up, and it's very hard to believe, but it's ignorance. So, for example, a European-based service provider for banking group thinks nothing of all this because they think they do a good job. I'm not sure if the bank has the same point.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think the knowledge base and everybody's focused on all sorts of other things because people are very busy these days, means that there are gaps in those in that knowledge and capability, which can lead to vulnerabilities. So if we wanted to, I'm going to one final question because we're coming up to 40 minutes. So if we wanted to understand from our principal domains, the domains that we use as brand owners on a daily basis for content and for email, and for customer service, etc. If we wanted to find out how secure those domains are, is there an easy way to do that?
Yes, it is. So we developed a domain security score. This is a score from 0 to 100, and that shows you how secure your domain is. So if you want to know if your domain is well secured, just check it on domainsecurity.info. So domainsecurity.info. And if your score is lower than 75, you will have to do a lot of homework, I think. In our advising services, we guarantee to reach at least a score of 80. So this is above the IT-based security. But if you want to just to get an idea how far the way is to have a secure domain, just check it on domainsecurity.info.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. And obviously, I think as Daniel said at the beginning, if anyone wants any more information or has any questions, either contact Daniel directly or myself directly, or go through your brand services contact that you already have if you're a client, obviously. So very happy to answer any questions or comments that you guys may have. So I think we'll wrap up there. I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance. There's been a few questions about whether we'll be sending out material afterwards. We will be, and obviously, please look out for that when we send that out via email. I'd also like to thank Daniel and his team for the research and obviously for the insight that he's provided. And I look forward to welcoming you all on another webinar in the near future. I appreciate your time and have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.